After this book, I was invited out to UCLA to debate Sam Harris, author of The End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation. And then 2 days later, I flew to San Francisco and went to Berkeley to debate Christopher Hitchens, not an experience I would wish on anyone in this room, who wrote God is Not Great. Now, you have to excuse the cute title. It's the tabloid journalist in me, and I take full responsibility for it. Look, atheism has an honored and important place in the Western intellectual tradition. Most of the great philosophical as well as theological reformers were in their day condemned, not only as atheists, but as heretics, Spinoza, even Martin Luther. I don't think any serious student of theology can walk away without closely reading Nietzsche, a mixture of brilliance and insanity, but someone who understood the moral consequences or the moral nihilism that resulted from a society that at its core no longer believed in God, as well as the will to power, as well as the last man, which, by the way, is a great critique of the new atheists. Along with Sartre and Camus. So I came prepared to accept the atheism of this movement, which I had not investigated. And of course, to prepare, I sat down and read the books. And I was appalled at how what these new atheists have done is, in secular language, replicate the very fundamentalist mindset that I had just spent 2 years investigating in the radical Christian right. What they do is create, like the radical Christian right, a binary worldview of us and them, black and white. Those of us who are elevated morally because we are rational, because we come from Western civilization, and those irrational religious hordes who are worthy only of conversion or eradication. Sam Harris, in The End of Faith, asks us to consider carrying out a nuclear first strike on the Arab world, which he admits would kill tens of millions of people, but it may be necessary, I'm paraphrasing, the quote is in the book, given what these people believe. Now, I spent 7 years of my life in the Middle East. I'm an Arabic speaker. That is not a rational statement. That's insane. That constant lust for preemptive war, long defenses of torture, both by Hitchens and Harris, is not accidental. What these people have done, and unfortunately I think they've seduced a lot of people on the secular left, especially students, is offer to them another form of self-exaltation. Because that's what the core of the ideology of the Christian right is about. It's about self-exaltation above others. And the new atheists do the same in secular language. That we who are rational, you want to drag them off to Freud 101. The notion that we're rational, number one. The cartoonish caricature of religion. Now, the kind of religious system that they go after is one that I detest. And have spent most of my life writing about, and had just spent 2 years of my life dedicated to fighting. And there's no shortage of great theologians, people like Karl Barth, Paul Tillich, Reinhold Niebuhr, who condemn fundamentalist belief as a form of idolatry, which I think it is. Let me just quickly say what I think religion is, or what it should be. Religious systems, theological systems, are human constructs. And like all human constructs, they are flawed and fallible. God itself is a human concept. It has no independent reality. It was created by human beings. And the question is why? And of course, across cultures, it's been done. And I think that religion, like art, is an attempt to deal with the non-rational, not the irrational, the non-rational, those powerful, non-rational forces that make us complete human beings. And all of us experience those forces, forces that can't be quantified and measured empirically by science. Love, beauty, the struggle to face our own mortality, alienation, grief, the search for meaning. That's what religion and art at its best seeks to grapple with. Do religious systems grapple with it imperfectly? Of course they do. Is there much that is written in every theological system that is morally repugnant? Of course. But I think we have to separate religious institutions as well as those who seek to articulate in very flawed ways these non-rational forces from the reality of these forces, the need that human beings have for the sacred and the transcendent. You know, every culture, I reported from 50 countries, I worked in Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, everybody struggles with this. And I think that the great benefit of spending as many years as I have outside the United States is that you recognize that there are many ways of being and believing and existing very different from our own that have as much validity and virtue as the belief systems, secular or religious, that we create. That people of great moral probity and courage arise in all cultures and all traditions, including atheism, to fight the oppressor on behalf of the oppressed. And that there is a common language between those who find these instinctive virtues. You know, Reinhold Niebuhr said that religion is a good thing for good people and a bad thing for bad people. Religion, I watched it. I covered the war in the former Yugoslavia. I was based in Sarajevo. It was not, as Sam Harris writes, a war caused by religion. It was a war caused by the economic meltdown of Yugoslavia and the rise of proto-fascist nationalist warlords like Slobodan Milosevic. Now, did the Serbian Orthodox Church and the Croatian Catholic Church and many of the mosques in Bosnia sign on enthusiastically for the slaughter? Yes. Did they give divine sanction to acts of genocide? Yes. But I think that when you externalize evil, the way the Christian right does or the way the new atheists do, when you believe that it is religion that causes acts of terror, fanaticism, desperation, then it is a very short step, one, by the way, the Jacobins took, to believing that we will move forward as a society, progress morally once we eradicate these human barriers to progress. Now, I spent a lot of time in Gaza, months and months and months, and a lot of that time was spent with Hamas, and a lot of that time was spent either with families of people who had carried out suicide bombings, or in some cases, people who would carry out suicide bombings. There is nothing in the Quran, by the way, condemns suicide. There's nothing in the Quran that, when you read it, leads someone to carry out an act of desperation such as a suicide bombing. And there's no shortage of serious studies by Pape and others that grasp that what it is that propels people to carry out these acts of self-annihilation and desperation are the long, slow drip of oppression, the collective humiliation, the daily indignities, the loss of hope, the inability to achieve economic independence that finally lead these young men, and in some cases women, to this horrible cul-de-sac where the only way they can affirm themselves is through death. Edward Said used to call suicide bombing necrophilia, and I think it is. But to somehow blame it on religion, or blame it on, of course, Islam, is to ignore those forces of oppression, occupation, globalization that are renting and tearing apart this world.